My name is Frank Soqui. I'm the General Manager for Virtual Reality and Gaming Client Group at Intel.
So talk a little about virtual reality and what you guys are doing here at ESL Katowice.
So this year in Intel Extreme Masters, what we have going on is not only the normal gaming you've seen with League of Legends and CSGO, but we have more exposure around what we're doing around VR and gaming. So this whole area that we're in right now is about the latest that we're doing with notebook platforms, desktop platforms, some of their activity with some of the Oculus and HTC headsets, and showing what's possible with gaming. We're showcasing some of our latest applications that show the value of Core i7 over Core i5. It's pretty amazing now. We're seeing the intersection of VR and gaming, and probably pretty soon we're going to see some eSports around VR as well.
When it comes to VR, how is that adding new excitement around PC gaming?
So the whole idea behind VR and gaming is that you want to feel like you're there. Everything that you're doing is to want to make you feel like you're actually inside that game. So VR at a very simplistic level is making a visual statement about what's going on inside of the game, but it's going way beyond the visual. You're adding the audio components. We're seeing advancements more and more into how that interactivity is happening within the game, how I can use my hands as natural controllers in addition to the controllers that are in the game. And there's, I think, a bright future for how this is going to be enhanced with more social aspects. So the ability to draw an audience into my VR game as well and draw multiplayers in this game as well. It's all about making me feel like I'm there in the game. That's exactly what it is. You're becoming part of the story.
So you just talked about a social aspect. We are seeing Sliver TV bringing IEM to those who have VR headsets. Talk about that new entryway into esports.
Yeah, so we're seeing two types of entries into esports. One is from an audience perspective, right? How do you have the audience actually see what the players are doing and how they're interacting when they're actually inside of a game, and what does it look like to be inside the game with them? So that helps. That's one way of it helping me doing that. We're seeing a lot of other technologies start to enhance that by getting multiple viewers inside of the game, having them change their point of view while they're inside the game so they can feel like they can see different angles of play. Matter of fact, just like we're doing with real sports with Voke and Replay, you're seeing similar things like that happen inside the gaming.
We've also seen Valve get involved with VR, both with the HTC Vive, but also with CSGO, opening that up to the VR world. What does it say when you start seeing companies like that getting behind VR for the future of esports?
So I love seeing companies like Valve getting into the esports. Matter of fact, the more we see companies get into the space, the more we're going to start seeing very compelling content getting developed. Because I got to tell you, right now the hardware is very capable of these experiences. What we need is that compelling content where people, to be honest, they feel like they want to do a little bit of VR every day. Having it associated with gaming is one thing, but we're seeing it associated with entertainment, and we're seeing it also associated in things like, travel, entertainment, real estate, training. It's just VR is exploding everywhere in many, many segments.
You mentioned VR and esports. Can you talk a little about some of the games you guys are showcasing and how they might open up a future? I know the Unspoken is one that you guys have been showing now for a couple of different events.
So we have Unspoken, we have Arizona Sunshine, Star Trek is another one. They have various aspects that are very interesting about them. Star Trek is like 4 players inside the game collaborating, which is a very cool experience, and I can wave at my friends inside of that game. In terms of Arizona Sunshine, what we're seeing is a lot more visual effects getting enhanced by the physics. What the CPU provides, you're getting more artificial intelligence, where the zombies who aren't real player characters are interacting with you in more interesting ways. And I think just the whole aspect around, we call it megatasking, but being able to save parts of my game at the same time I'm playing the game and stream it live online puts a tremendous load on the system, and our CPUs are delivering all the performance necessary to deliver that.
And Lone Echo, I believe, is the other one you guys are showing here as well.
Yeah, so there's no end of brand new titles that are starting to emerge in this space. Lone Echo is another example of that. We're seeing a lot of small indie companies come up and start to experiment with VR. Some of them are taking a pure storytelling angle, some of them are taking a pure social angle, some are taking a pure gaming angle. One size doesn't fit all. There are voracious audiences for all of these types of experiences, from lightweight gaming to tilt brush type of interaction where I'm an artist. I'm really encouraged by the breadth of applications that are getting out there that we can showcase and talk about.
When you look at PC gaming today, the two hottest areas are esports and virtual reality. How do you see those two combining when you look at the future of esports?
So right now, when esports, it's coming at VR is coming at the angle from the audience, and so you saw Sliver TV as an example. The other element of VR and esports is where we actually get an esports game where you start to create audiences of this size, like we do with CS:GO and League of Legends. You really have to design those games from grounds up. You can't take a simple game and convert it. So what we're seeing is investments in these areas where people are doing grounds up designs, with the key aspect of that being like team play and interaction, and then they build the social elements into it so that the players can interact with people online. As a matter of fact, what I envision in the future is some of those players may become aspects of the game itself, where they take on avatar-like personalities inside and change the nature of the game, and that just makes it a lot more exciting.
When you look at the future, what do you see the interactive and the actual physical aspects of VR opening up for esports, which right now is a very sedentary experience for the gamers?
Right. So from a point of view of esports, we're seeing a couple of things. One is the teams are getting up and interacting with each other, and I think that just the way you like to watch players now, how they're doing the quick twitch with the mouse and the keyboard, seeing players in that space actually moving up and down and ducking and seeing other players next to them also interact with them is going to be an amazing thing to do. We also see some of these elements where it actually bring in other, call it, devices into that space with them, right? Whether it's a real device that gets brought into the virtual reality space, or they're in a device that helps them interact differently inside of that environment. I think for esports teams, they're going to be able to afford things like that, some of that bigger equipment. For home side of things, viewing into it and being able to do basic controls, right, and be able to interact is, yes, it's getting off the couch. I'm a little surprised by how much people actually have no problem getting up and moving up and down in that space. They seem to completely adopt the fact that virtual reality might be actually reality for them.
You guys are showing us Project Alloy. Can you talk a little about that?
Yeah. So Project Alloy is amazing design from two aspects. One, it basically combines compute into the headset. So the PC is not a notebook or a desktop anymore. The PC is actually part of the VR headset that I'm wearing. And to be able to manage that with the battery and the performance of the CPU and the graphics has been very challenging, but we've done pretty amazing things with that on Alloy. The second aspect is the fact that we're bringing a concept called merge reality into Project Alloy. This is where we're applying things like hardware 6-off, as well as depth control of VR cameras to be able to bring real objects into the virtual reality space and be able to interact with them. That interactivity is what we call merged reality. So now my hands become controllers, or I can bring a tennis racket, scan it in front of that RealSense camera depth-wise, and I can play virtual tennis because I've scanned my real tennis racket.
What's the future in terms of people watching this for Project Alloy? When potentially and where would they see these types of VR in the future for Project Alloy?
So for things like Project Alloy, I think one of the key elements of Project Alloy is the fact that I can do multi-room sort of VR. I can move from one room to the next. The fact that I can have a depth sensing camera on the front means I can move around in the real space, see what's happening in real space, avoid them, or have it be part of the game and move from room to room. That portability is just going to be crazy important for people feeling like they've been freed up from having to stay in one spot. And we actually believe some of the key tenets of Project Alloy will apply to the PC space as well. You can put cameras like that in those types of headsets, and we have wireless kind of technology. We demonstrated what's possible at Mobile World Congress with WiGig. So now I've freed up the wire from the headset to the PC, and now I've got Project Alloy-like technology, and I can move around more freely in that space. So we're seeing it applying more broadly.
And you just mentioned WiGig, specifically for esports, as you look at kind of the high-end virtual reality esports of the future. What role will tetherless play?
Well, if you notice, some of these games require a lot of movement, right? Dodging back and forth or twirling around. The fact that wire is removed gives anybody in esports, whether it's a professional or the esports players at home, because that applies to home players as well, gives them the freedom of movement to actually make them feel like they're in that space and not be encumbered by wires. You're trying to suspend their disbelief. You don't want to feel a wire wrapping around you and have that limit your movement. Also, you don't want to have to pull that headset off your head because you have a wire there.
What do you see virtual reality esports opening up for a new breed of players that enter in the space?
All right, so I don't know what to comment about current esports players that love League and CS:GO if they were going to go into that VR space. But what I see this doing is that now people who have not been able to compete in that space, and this newly emerging sort of opportunity around VR for esports, I think you're going to see classes of people who are aspirationally trying to be in esports, not start to try these things out. And by the way, esports is sort of the pinnacle. It's the professional side of what we do, but that is an aspirational use case. Everybody's doing esports. Just because they're not a pro does not mean they're in esports. So we say that applying in gaming as well as in VR types of games.